standing here with you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to When Love Interrupts. My name is Charity Campbell. I'm here with my co-host Cheryl Stewart.
Hi.
And we have a lovely guest today, Leslie Nease. You may know her from Survivor. Was it season 15? China?
Season 15
Yeah,
in
China. Okay.
2007. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And she's got an incredible podcast called Honoring the Journey, which is just amazing. You got to check out. We are so happy that you were able to join us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I love Cheryl and I have a lot in common from our past, where we come
see.
from. So it's kind of fun to get to talk to her and to get to meet you finally. So
Oh yeah, same. Because I've seen you all. Well, this is really funny. I don't know if you know this, Leslie, but when you were working at his radio in Greenville, I was working at his radio Z.
Oh, you're kidding
At the
me.
same time. Yes, I was. It was so funny. But I think I left a little bit before you did. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
So
fun.
it's really, really crazy. Yeah.
What was that guy's name that did that? Britt?
Britt, he told me to tell you hey today also.
Oh, hi, Britt.
Taylor.
Tell him hi. That's so fun. He was such a
we
good
love
guy.
Britt.
We love Britt.
I do a
his
show for
energy.
the Z as well.
Yep.
Do you really?
Yeah,
Oh,
he's a
that's
great
so
person.
fun. Very
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Love it.
They're wonderful. Wonderful people.
Back in what year was it? Was it 2000? The first season of Survivor. I watched the first season, and I was working in Christian radio at the time. I was doing afternoons on the Air One network, and the guy that came on after me, Mike Schaefer, and he was also watching Survivor, and so we would chat about it, just because like we were into it and it was something to talk about. And we used to get so many angry emails from people about talking about an ungodly show it was, because like there's a dude walking around naked and he's gay and like, oh man, it was like I got to a point where I did not read listener emails because I'm like, oh, what did I do now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would.
But you know what's really cool?
Oh, I'm sure.
When I left, when I left Air One to go to mainstream radio, the last week, might even be the last day, I got an email from a listener who was like saying goodbye. And she's like, I have to admit, I judged you in the beginning and I thought you were so worldly and blah, blah, blah. She's like, but the more you would talk about your life, the more I could see that you just really loved God, but maybe spoke a different language from me. And I just really came to love you. And I thought that was really sweet and very redemptive.
That is truly.
It's all about listening to each other, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Absolutely it is.
Yes,
that's the truth.
No, it's hard. Yeah, there's definitely some opinions when you work in Christian radio. So just a heads up, I used to work in Christian radio as well for a very long time, from about 2004. I guess I don't know when I stopped. I probably 2019 or 20. And I did morning show. I did an afternoon show. I've done voice tracking. I absolutely loved it, but then started kind of deconstructing and I kind of wanted to just focus on that. So I pulled away, and it was hard because I really love the listeners and I love to encourage people. But I also kind of knew that if people knew what I was going through, they probably wouldn't want me on their radio station.
Yeah.
So I quit, and it was very, very difficult. And I thought that was it for me as far as, voice work and whatever. But, now that I'm doing my podcast, I'm actually starting a new podcast in August with a fellow Survivor China contestant, actually the winner of Survivor China. Todd and I are going to start a podcast in August called Beyond the Torch. And we're going to be interviewing people, your favorite survivors that you've maybe lost track of or maybe even forgot about.
Yes.
I was just interviewed by a guy named Andy Dehart, I think is his name. He works with Reality. Oh gosh, I forget the name of it. But anyway, he did like an interview with me, and he goes, "Yeah, I had totally forgotten about you."
Well, to be fair, there's a lot of seasons. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. There's
so many seasons.
Yeah. And I was old school. I mean, it was 2007. We're talking like 18 years ago.
Yes.
A lot of the audience wasn't even born yet. So yeah, I get notes all the time from people who were
Was
like,
that when
"I
they
was
had the
7
two
years old."
tribes?
Yeah,
Or did they?
yeah. 2 tribes, 16 contestants.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so many people auditioned, like
Oh, I can't
hundreds
even
of
imagine.
thousands. And so I was shocked. I mean, even that I got picked, I was thrilled. You know, so when I didn't do well, it was kind of sad, but I was also, well, at least, I was like, I placed 14th out of
Hey,
100,000.
stop it. That's what I was going to say, though. But so many people never
Well, and you got a
even
free
get
trip
the
to China.
Yeah, I did.
That's right. That's
Hello.
exactly
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Would you ever go back on, do you think, if you were asked?
Yeah, I would, but I don't think they'll ask me.
No.
I didn't get to play the game the way that I think I would now because I
Yes.
was filled with so much fear. I think, playing the game as a Christian radio host who was on
Mhm.
a very popular Christian radio station in Charlotte, North Carolina, I had so much pressure. And,
Mhm.
as a Christian, you're almost like, I'm representing the God of the universe. So I have
Yeah.
to be very, very good.
Mhm.
I don't
Yes.
want to cuss. I don't want to lie. And Survivor has an element of lying to it, which I
Yep.
thought I was
Yeah.
okay with.
Mhm.
I thought I was okay because you play balderdash and you
Yeah.
bluff and it's part of the game, right? But you
Exactly.
get out there and you start forming these relationships with people and it feels really icky.
Oh.
And so there was a lot of pressure and a lot of fear of making God look bad, making
Mhm.
the radio station upset or losing my job or whatever. And so I think I just got in my head. So
Mhm.
I think they're disappointed in how I played versus how I said I would play. And I
Yes.
don't blame them.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really don't. But
Mhm.
guys, I would totally play it right now.
And she would do amazing now and do it. She
I
would
totally
be
would.
cutthroat,
Yes,
okay?
I would.
Please
It would
have
be
her back
awesome.
on. Yes.
Ugh.
So I know with, like, a lot of reality TV shows, it does seem like there is this construct where they do every character they find and put on, there is a formula, and you
Oh, yeah.
must stick to that. And, like, for you, for example, being on Survivor, you were cast as that, like, more conservative Christian voice.
Yeah.
And so whether you had not, acted in this one way
Mhm.
and, like, you would have gotten crucified
Oh, yeah.
by, Christians if
Mhm.
you played, a certain way. But then
Yeah.
on the other side, you have the same thing because
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, no, she's a bigot. We gotta put her with the gay guy." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like, "What do you do? What are you supposed to do?" It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I don't think that they really banked on the fact that I'm a very open-minded and loving person.
Yep.
And though I did believe at that point that homosexuality was a sin and that it was a
Mhm.
chosen lifestyle, I will say at that point in my life, that's what I believed.
Mhm.
I didn't like that I believed it. There was
Me
something in me that was
too.
like,
Yes.
ew, I don't like this. And there was a guy, I remember asking a guy who was a professor at the local Christian university when I worked at his radio. I said, I was bothered when I came back and I was like, tell me, like, why do we say that homosexuality is so bad? Like, why do we disqualify these people?
Yeah.
And he said, well, Leslie, it's an abomination. And I feel like he thought if I say this, then she won't ask any more questions. But then I was like, well, what does that mean? And he's like, well,
Exactly.
just look up abominations. So I did. And there's dozens of them.
Yeah.
Things like don't mix fabrics. It's an abomination. Don't have sex with a woman while she's on her period.
Yep.
That's
Mhm.
an abomination.
Send her
The
out into the woods.
abominations. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so why are we cherry picking this one
Mhm.
and saying this is the one that disqualifies
Mhm.
you from getting to heaven and being connected to God? Why
Exactly.
are we saying this? And nobody had an answer for me that was, satisfactory to my
Yeah.
very inquisitive and curious soul, I guess. And so I just kept digging and I just never, guys, I never was, and I'll be real, like I was looking for answers, not because I
Mhm.
wanted to do it wrong, but because I wanted to talk to Todd
Mhm.
about it. Because Todd and I became very close out there.
Oh.
Still to
Yeah.
this day calls me mama. You know what I mean? Like
Aw.
we're very, very close. And I had never that I knew of loved
Mhm.
anybody in my life that was that close
Mhm.
that had, been a homosexual. I would
Yep.
have said at the time struggled with the sin of
Mhm.
homosexuality. And so I was really trying to arm myself with truth so that I could convince him so that he could change and be a better person and be accepted by God and go to heaven.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I started this journey, guys. It wasn't to be, to sin. It wasn't to like, do bad things and get away with it because I was just tired of all the rules. I was trying to prove that I was right and I couldn't. And so that really kind of lit the fire of my deconstruction. But then, I think in 2016, when the political climate, I was just a little confused, guys. I'm not a super political person, but I will tell you, as a conservative, Republican Christian woman, I was always like told that if a president is an immoral person, that they should be disqualified and maybe even impeached if they're already there.
Right.
Think back to Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right?
I was so confused when all of a sudden people like Franklin Graham were telling me it's fine.
I know.
We're not electing a pastor. We're electing a president. He's going to have our agenda in mind. He wants what's best for us. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I feel like that if we're going to get it the wrong way, maybe we shouldn't get it. Maybe, so I started to kind of pull away at that point. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Oh gosh,
Sadly.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I
that's
know
kind
I
of when I
can.
started going. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I did the same thing. That was always something in me. It's sort of like racism.
Mhm.
Again, I live in the Bible Belt. And so I do still deal with seeing that, a good amount.
Yeah.
And homophobia, anything like that. And well, I've always deep in my soul felt like, how I don't, like you said, it makes me feel icky. Like, I don't like to think about that I would be allowed into heaven or better than them
Right.
just because, like, it never set right with me either.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you both grew up in church from the time you were little. Okay, so same here. And something I because I'm a thinker, I'm very logical, and I'm always trying to reason. And I remember as a kid thinking, because I also heard that Mormons were a cult, and the Catholics, don't get started on the Catholics. And by the way, I love Pope
Love them
Francis
all.
and Pope Leo.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, he's great.
We
Yeah.
could
Holy
go on
crap.
about
Wow.
that. But
I might be Catholic now. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know, right? He's taking such a bold stand that I wish our Christian leaders would. But anyway,
my wife
They're
helped
condemning
me.
him instead, of course.
Yes.
I'm a few years older than you, Charity. But maybe Leslie, I think you're on my age. You might remember, like Donnie and Marie had a show
Love
every
Donnie.
Saturday night, and I was not allowed to watch that show because they are Mormons.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember my parents saying, "Oh, Mormonism is a cult. So you can't watch that. They might be sneaking in messages to convert you." That's what I grew up in. So
That's
I started
crazy.
thinking, and I was like, with specifically to the Mormons,
Yeah.
I was like, well, I mean, who's to say they're not right? Like, how do we know? How do we know that we are the right ones and everybody else is wrong? Because like it was Presbyterians, it was Lutherans, it was Methodists, it was anybody but this really Pentecostal, American Pentecostal,
which is what we were in. So of course.
And I just wanted to know, how do we know that this is the right one? Because people have been practicing Christianity for thousands of years, and indigenous cultures have a connection to spirituality that they practice, and their connection to God. They may call God different things, but they've got their own practices and their own connections. And who are we to say that they're wrong? And no one can ever answer that for me.
And the funny thing is, I actually moved to Utah in about 7 years ago. And when I moved here, I had already started deconstructing because, Trump. And I came here and I was already kind of out of church and like going, what is happening? If they're deceived about this, what else are they deceived about? Like, I'm going to figure this out because I don't know what's right, and I think the certainty of we are the one true church, we are the one true religion, I realized very quickly the Mormons think that too. Yeah. And then now that I'm doing a podcast where I interview people from different religions, I'm like, oh my gosh, every religion thinks they are the one true religion.
Well, yeah.
And people say, well, yeah, but ours is based on the Bible. You know what? So is theirs. You know what? Ours is based on truth. You know what? They think theirs
Yeah.
is too. Like everybody thinks they're right and everybody's wrong. But what if we're all right?
Kind of
Or
right.
what if we're all wrong?
Well,
Exactly.
what if we all have a different piece of the same big picture?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You
Which is,
know?
I think,
Based on
probably
culture,
is.
based on
Mhm.
upbringing, based on, where you've been brought up. I mean, if you're brought up in Utah, sorry, you're going to be Mormon.
Right. Yep.
And according to where I came from, that means you're going to hell because
Yep.
you're absolutely deceived and you're in a cult,
Same.
right? So
Mhm.
if that's the truth, then tell me, like, help me understand how that's just and how
Right.
that's good. And if God is love and love is patient and kind and doesn't keep a record of wrongs and is,
Mhm.
loving and good and gentle and like, help me understand. And why would God tell me to love my enemies, but he'll send his to hell if they don't believe the right way? Like
Exactly.
I literally,
Right.
these questions would not stop coming when I moved here. It was
Same.
like the floodgates opened. I was in the wilderness, guys, literally in
Yeah.
the wilderness, feeling like I was toxic. I was like, these thoughts, I didn't go to church, not because I didn't want to, but because I was wanting to protect these people from me.
Yeah.
I was so
Yes.
afraid that I was way off base and something was really happening. Like I was like so scared. And I just, I just kept digging and I'm like, God, reveal yourself. Help me
Mhm.
understand because everybody thinks that they're right. And I'm
Yep.
not sure anybody is. And if
Yes.
anybody is, that means everybody is. And like it was so bizarre. And then I literally just started thinking of myself like, okay, God compares God's self to a parent, right?
Mhm.
So I'm thinking about my 4 children who mean the absolute world to me.
Everything. Yeah.
Is there anything that they would ever do that would make me send them to eternal conscious torment? I literally spent weeks just in absolute agony thinking
Yeah.
about this. And there's nothing, I don't care what it is. Like
Mm-mm.
there's nothing that they could do that would make me say,
Mhm.
you're going to go to hell and you're going to burn forever. And I
Yep.
thought, why am I not okay with this, but God is? Why do I look at God as somebody who would do this? And I really, really wrestled with this, guys. It wasn't
Mhm.
easy. I didn't do this because I wanted to. I
Yeah.
did it because it didn't make sense. My
Same.
head and my
Mhm.
heart did not line up.
Yep.
Everything felt weird. And as a result, I was on anxiety medicine. I was on
Mhm.
depression medicine. I was overweight. My test, like blood test scores it was
Every
bad. I was
Mhm.
really, really ill. And I was making myself ill
Yeah.
because I was so distressed over, when you're an empathetic person, ladies, maybe you can, I don't know,
Yes.
relate to that.
Yeah.
When you're an
Very much.
empathetic person, everything feels heavy.
Mhm.
And when you think that people you love may burn in hell for all of eternity because they don't believe right, you become desperate
Yeah.
and you become unreasonable. And
Yeah.
that's where I was.
Yeah.
And I don't know how God gave me the grace to be able to work through all of that, but God did give me the grace.
Mhm.
And now I'm on the other side of all of the questions, and now I can breathe.
Yep.
I am not certain about anything, and that feels like the mystery that God talks about in the scripture. And I feel like I don't need to know. All I need to know is that God is love and
Yes.
God is good and God loves me and God has never been not connected to me.
Mhm.
Religion tried to tell me that I didn't
Yeah.
have something that I already had. And then they tried to sell it to me by saying,
Yep.
if you check these boxes, then we will, we'll be good. You'll be able to go to heaven and God will be connected to you, but not unless you do this. And I realized very quickly, God is connected to all of us. If we have
Mm.
breath, we are connected to God.
Exactly.
There's no to-do list. And
Mm-mm.
oh my gosh, if I would have heard myself say that 10 years ago,
Right.
I can't, like, I would be like, what is happening?
You're
She is
going
so
down that
deceived.
slippery
You're
slope
down the
they
slippery slope,
warned us about,
so I get it if there's somebody listening who's like, but okay, take that fear that you feel right now. Okay. Take it
Mhm.
and really like feel that fear for a second.
Yep.
And then I want you to read in 4th John where it says there is no
Mhm.
fear in perfect love because perfect love casts out fear and fear
Mhm.
has to do with punishment. And then I want you to tell me if what you're feeling is perfect love or not.
Mm.
Because if you are experiencing the perfect love of God, you
Yeah.
should not be afraid,
No.
period.
I know.
And I
exactly.
say that with so much passion because I am so tired of hearing from people who were in the faith that I was in. They're like,
Mhm.
I don't know what you were so afraid of. I don't have any fear at all. I'm like, really? You don't have any fear at all, but you
Wow.
believe in hell and you
Yes.
believe that God is going to send people there for believing wrong.
hmm
And you don't feel fear? What is wrong with you? Are you
I don't.
okay? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Is it just us deeply feeling, deeply sensitive, empathetic people that are waking up to like how ridiculous it sounds? I don't know.
You know, it's
Sorry.
funny
I feel like I'm
because I
preaching right
would.
now.
No, you're good. Please vent away. I'm going to as well.
Okay,
Because I
go.
was going to say, I think I would actually typically answer that question. No, yeah, it has to be us. It just has to be, you have to just be an empathetic person.
Yeah.
But my dad actually is one of like, he has such a tender heart.
Mhm.
And so it's so funny to see that in a light where he might still be very conservative and hold a lot of views that I feel like are hateful. But at the same time, I've seen him walk up to an immigrant that he knew he had made a connection and a relationship with, and they were being he was going to be deported, and my dad just walked up to him and grabbed him and was just hugging him and gave him just like a couple $100 and was like, please just message me if y'all need anything, please. And it's just, so for me, it's kind of like, how can you feel that in your heart and then not want to do something desperately about it?
Well, I think it's a process for all of us, right? So I think that's really encouraging about your dad
Yeah.
is that, he's got that in his heart. And I think, as long as you're drawing breath, there's hope for, and we're
Absolutely.
changing every single
Yeah.
day.
That was
I just think
me.
the whole
Yeah.
world's in this whole process of waking up and
Yeah.
being like, what kind of trance have we been under?
Oh God.
You
For
know?
real.
A
Brainwash.
theological one.
Yeah.
It's a theological one. I think what we're missing in Christianity today is that people equate belief with faith, and it's very different. Okay. We are not saved by our beliefs. We are saved by faith. It is by grace you are saved through faith, not of yourselves. It's a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
So if we know that, tell me why people, first of all, the first thing they say when they find out, okay, I'm going to ask you girls right now.
Okay.
What's the first thing people ask you when they find out you're deconstructing?
If you're still a Christian.
Yeah.
If you
I
still
do get
believe.
that a lot.
Believe.
If you still
Do you
believe,
still
yeah.
believe in Jesus?
Yes.
Do you still believe that Jesus is the Son of God?
Yeah,
Do you still believe? Do you
absolutely.
still believe? Do you still? They're always asking me this.
Constant.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, you guys are missing the boat.
Completely.
Faith is not a belief. I know we think it is. And I know that there are verses that say it, but if you look at it, sometimes they switch out those words. They were originally meant to say faith, but they change it to believe. You know what I mean? So like there are so many, and when somebody says the Bible is clear, I just want to go, are
No.
you crazy? The
I
Bible is so
mean,
not clear.
No.
The Bible, your translation of the Bible is clear to you as you've been taught.
Yes.
But the Bible is not clear.
Mm-mm.
And
it
to
contradicts
me,
itself all the
it totally
time.
does.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be irreverent when I say that.
Yeah,
And I know
same.
that bothers people who are deep in it because it used to bother
Yes.
me. I
I
was like,
know.
oh, this person is so lost. But I will tell you, if it doesn't line up with how Jesus lived his life, I am not going to believe it about God. Period.
Yes.
I don't care what verse you can point out. I
Me
don't
too.
care what book of the Bible it's in. If the way Jesus lived his life does not line up with that quote truth, it's not something I'm going to believe anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line for me.
Well, it blows my mind that people want to latch on so hard to these Old Testament vengeful, wrathful God verses and
Yeah.
like they want that so badly. And to me, it's just an insult to what Jesus did, to who he is and what he did. What was the point of him coming to be a sacrifice and take it all on himself? At the end, he says it's finished, but you want to go back to
Really?
before?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Why can't we just follow Jesus? Why
I don't
can't we do that?
Well, how many times did he say, "You've heard it said this, but I tell you this"? He was the first deconstructionist, guys.
Yes.
Like, think about it. He took the
Yes.
words that were being used against him and said, "Now you've heard it said this, but I'm telling you this." And he would either up the ante or completely change the meaning of what they were saying. And I think what he's trying to show us is just because it says this doesn't mean that's what it means. You know, there's a deeper depth, there's a mystical meaning behind all of it. And you have to think bigger. God is so much bigger, guys. We're trying to put him in this Christian shaped box. We're trying to put him in this Mormon shaped box or this Muslim shaped box. And we're calling him something different to make it seem different. But, you know, I don't know. I'm just, the more I learn, the more I realize we're all trying to connect to God in the best way that we know how. And we may call him something different. I remember speaking this because I used to be a speaker, and I would share, you know, truth and quote unquote. And I remember saying to people, yes, all roads lead to God, but only one of them has a pleasant outcome.
Oh,
I remember saying that, guys. So if you heard me, if you're listening to this and you heard me say that, I'm so sorry. I was misled. I was scared. You will say anything you can to convince people if what you believe has hell dangling under, you know, if they're dangling over hell and you know that in an instant they could be released into it, you will say whatever you can to convince people to believe what you believe, even if just in case. And I remember having that argument with people. They'd be like, well, maybe you're wrong. And I'm like, yeah, but what if I am right? You're going to go to hell. And I will have just lived a good life. Like, what a freaking mixed up, like wacky thing to say. What kind of, are you serious? So you believe out of fear. Listen, if you're believing out of fear, you're not believing right, period. And I don't know how I didn't see it.
Well, and how many times does the Bible tell us to fear not?
Fear not.
Right.
Like, that is the one thing over. Well, there's many things, but like over and over again, we're told not to fear, and yet that seems to be the basis of American evangelicalism is using fear to motivate people.
Don't go to
I
hell.
mean, that's what I grew up in. That's all I knew was end times, you know, and I never even thought I would get to 35.
Rapture.
Yeah, rapture. Yeah, I'm 35 and I was like, nah, I will, it'll all be over by the time I'm 20. I used to think to myself, I'm very curious, Leslie. I bet you've had these same thoughts when you were growing up.
100%.
And Cheryl too, I bet. I used to literally be like, oh, God, please just don't come back until I can get married. I just want to have that experience.
I want to know what that's like.
I want to know what that's like. Don't come back. And then it would be until I have a child, you know, because I want to know what that's like. I want to experience it. And that I didn't realize until I started to deconstruct, realizing how I had built my entire life. My entire foundation was on nothing but absolute fear of the rapture. And I was terrified. I was never going to be good enough to be taken. You know, I would be left behind. And then my mom and dad would be gone. And I would like go into their room after midnight, you know, to make sure they were still snoring so that I knew they were there, you know? And so it is crazy. It's wild. It's just wild.
Yeah. I don't know how we didn't see. I mean, when you're in it though, it just feels normal. And you think it's normal until you talk to somebody who wasn't brought up that way. And they're like, oh my gosh, you believe what?
Yes.
You thought you were going to disappear. And, you know, and I think about when my kids, I remember tucking them in. God, this is such a horrible, horrible memory. But yet at the time I thought it was beautiful, but I would tuck them in and, you know, they would be like, you know, are you sure I'm saved, Mom? And I'd be like, well, I don't know. Did you say the prayer? And do you feel sorry for your sins? And did you ask Jesus? Well, I don't know. Maybe I didn't do it right. Well, let's do it again. And they would cry as they did it. And I thought it was beautiful. I remember thinking, oh, my kids are so spiritual because they're crying. And now I realize that was religious trauma.
It
They were
was.
absolutely
Mhm.
terrified that they weren't doing it the right way. And so like, what have I done to my children? And like the experience of my life of being so afraid of all of it, and like, to be honest, I remember praying, God, please don't take me in the rapture. I
Yeah.
want to be here. I want to help people know the truth.
Oh God.
Don't take me.
You're
I
my
don't want to
hero.
be gone. No,
That
I was desperate. And
Uh-uh.
I even made a video and I put it on the desktop of my computer. This was in 2008, so it wasn't that long ago. And I put it on the desktop of my computer and it said, please open if I disappear.
Oh.
And it was the gospel. It was, this is what's going to happen. You better not take the mark of the beast or you're going to get your head chopped off, because that's what I was taught. Like,
Yep.
I was so into it. So like, if you're listening and you have people in your life who are like so into it and you're like, there's no hope, trust me, there's hope.
There is. That's what I say.
Especially if they have a heart
Yes.
that like has empathy,
Mhm.
and they're not going to stop searching until they find the truth.
Exactly.
And I'm not even sure I found truth, but I do know what's not true. And if it doesn't line up with how Jesus lived his life,
Yep.
and if it doesn't express love and
Yes.
kindness and goodness and patience and, self-control, if it doesn't express all of that, then yeah, no thanks.
Yeah. Exactly. I feel like I truly am a red letter Christian at this point, because pretty
same.
much if Jesus, if it wasn't said by him or taught by him,
Yeah.
I do just kind of disregard it, because that's what I want to be. That's what I want to show. That's how I want to live my life, And so, yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. Going
It's a
back to
great
the rapture trauma of
Oh,
childhood.
yes.
So I remember when pastors used to say, when they would be preaching about it, that they hoped that they would be in a graveyard when Jesus came back.
Oh,
Did you
I've
ever
heard
hear
this.
that one? Where like they're like,
No.
I
They
hope
come out
I
of their
am in a
coffins.
graveyard when the
Yeah.
trumpet blows and all the spirits rise
Dead
up.
in Christ shall
And
rise.
that was just like, oh my gosh, like that's something out of a horror movie to me. I'm like, so I used to pray, and I would never
Please
go
don't
to
let me be in a
funerals.
graveyard.
I would never, like, if I had to go to a graveyard because a family member died or whatever, I would just be like so afraid. And I would just be like counting the minutes so we could get out of there, because I did not want the rapture to happen while I was in the graveyard. I didn't want to see all that, like zombies coming out of the
They're
grave and
zombies.
stuff. It was
Oh, dear.
terrifying.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting, and I love what you said about there's always hope as long as there's love in the heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a really good friend when I was going through my second divorce, and we could talk about how that fear of letting God down led to me marrying two very abusive men and staying in those relationships longer than I should have. But when the divorce with my second abusive husband happened, I had a friend who worked at a radio station in Philadelphia or in Delaware, and we had become friends. She was a pastor's wife, and we started talking every day. Now, she was older than me, so she had more time to grow up in all of that, and she was still very conservative. At this point, I'm pretty progressive. I've spent these years on the West Coast and mainstream radio, and I'd kind of ditched a lot of the old ways and thinking, but she was still very conservative, even though she was kind of living her best life now. And it's funny because like if I would open up to her about some struggle I was having, she'd be like, oh, well, you aren't praying the right scripture. Like, it was very legalistic. You got to pray the right scriptures. Cheryl, you're being too self-centered. You just need it's like at the time I was like, I just want somebody to love me. And she's
I
like,
know.
well, you just need to just love Jesus more, like all this stuff, right? All the stuff. And so she was very legalistic, but we were friends. And she had cancer that when it came back with a vengeance. And so we went through a period of a couple of months where we weren't able to talk a lot, but there was such a huge transformation in her. And she actually reconciled. They didn't get remarried, but she reconciled with her ex-husband, the pastor, who she had hated. But like through these circumstances unfolding, he had shown up for her with love, and she accepted it with grace. And the very last conversation we had, she just like told me, she's like, how foolish I've been. I've wasted so much time on things that didn't matter. She goes, Cheryl, she goes, the only thing that matters is love. And she had actually I believe, had some near-death experiences at this point. She was like in hospice, and she's like, "That's all that matters." She's like, "Don't waste your time on the stuff that doesn't matter." She's like, "All that matters is love." And she's like the third person close to me that at the very end, that is the message that they wanted to get across to me. And so I
Wow.
have to believe there's something
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
because Jesus said the greatest, there's all these
Greatest
commandments, but
love.
the greatest of these is love.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not just randomly in there for no reason. I think that's the key to it
No.
all.
He
Same.
didn't say the greatest of these is your belief system.
Mhm.
No.
He said the greatest of these is love. And it's funny because I'm like sitting here like, did you know Donna? Because that was my friend who passed away who said the exact same thing to
Oh
me.
No
my
way.
And
No way,
I have
really?
a
No, my friend was Jen.
tattoo.
Aw.
This is my tattoo. We got
Oh,
matching tattoos right
I'm
before
so
she passed
sorry that
away.
she
And
passed.
she was very strong Christian, but like near the end, same thing. She just had so many close encounters, quote unquote,
Yeah.
of almost passing. And she just had such a reverence and peace about it. And she was like, Leslie, just it's love. And she had me speak at her funeral because she knew that I was deconstructing.
Mm.
And she was like, but she also knew that like the Christian community didn't really know that yet, because I hadn't really come out yet and talked about it to anybody but her, really. And she was like, you'll be able to share this in a way that they'll listen.
Yeah.
But like,
Oh, so
don't
good.
give them the ultimate, like, if you want to see Donna again, you need to say a prayer. She's
Oh
like,
my
I need
yes.
you to not do that. And it was really hard being there around all these people who I knew were waiting for me to present the gospel. It like a funeral is like,
Yeah.
the Super Bowl for the gospel,
Right.
right? You get
Yeah,
to
it is.
like, this is it, guys. You want to see this person again, you better freaking say this prayer. And
Yep.
and there's so much pressure, and it's all fear-based.
Mhm.
And she's like, do not, just talk about love and how important love is. So it's just interesting. Same
Yeah.
exact thing, same exact message, Cheryl, and
Wow.
totally different people.
Well, I believe that, and I don't know, this is just something I feel in my spirit, that we don't really have to go looking for God, and we don't have to work so hard. Excuse me. I feel like we don't have to work so hard at it and worry about praying the right scriptures and saying the right things and looking a certain, like, we don't have to do all of that, because I believe that God reveals himself to us. He seeks us, he comes after us,
Yeah.
and he reveals himself to us in a way that we uniquely can understand. And it might come from somebody who we can hear and speak their language. That's why I kind of don't understand. Well, we won't get off on the track of, going to countries with the gospel when they don't even understand your language. But
yeah.
but God's going to send somebody to reveal his truth that speaks your language, that you can understand, because he can, because
Yes.
he created all of this and
Yes,
all
he
of us,
can.
and he's big enough to do that. But we try to take control, and it's just,
That's the worst thing we can do, usually. That's so
Yeah.
funny that you mentioned that, because I found it, I only recently, probably the end of 2024, really started to reconstruct, because I was pretty much done. I was kind of out of everything. I just wanted nothing to do with Christianity or any of it. And again, like, politics was a huge part of that. But but it was the oddest things that touched my spirit that ended up making me reevaluate. It was, well, a lot of it was queer Christian music, people like Derek Webb, affirming, and then Similar and like Flamey Grant and all these incredible people. But also there was a horror movie called Heretic, and super big spoilers if you want to go see this, guys. So just turn it off right now. But it was one of the most beautiful movies and had the most beautiful message I'd seen. And it was two Mormon girls, that it's Hugh Grant. So, it's great. He is terrifying, but he basically he can be really creepy. And he basically captures them. And the whole thing is just, he's just wanting to see what they really believe, if they really believe what they say. But at the
Wow.
end, one of the girls, she's kind of like the last one, and she's dying. He has stabbed her, but he is also dying because she stabbed him. So he crawls across the floor and lays his head on her shoulder and asks her to say a prayer, even though the whole time he's trying to convince them that there's not really a God. The real one true religion is just control. There's no a God or anything.
Mhm.
And I thought that was so funny how at death, though, he was like, I need comfort still, and she didn't. And she even said they did a study, the Great Prayer Experiment, and found that really prayer doesn't work. And she said, but I find it so beautiful that people take the time to think of others and to like pray for others and do all these things. And so she did it. It was just like so beautiful. And that to me, I was like, that's faith right there. Her
That's love.
seeing it's faith and love. Yeah. Her seeing a study, but still having that compassion with somebody that's trying to kill her
Yeah.
to say a prayer and comfort him in his dying moments. And that to me, it spoke to me. And
Yeah.
in just the most random of ways, I felt like that was God, and it's crazy. Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's how he works.
I do too.
I think that's how he reveals himself to us in those random
Mhm.
things and whatever's going to
Yep.
get through,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. I
But
love
also
that movie. So good.
oh, you saw it.
Yeah, I
Yay.
did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Whoo!
girl. I know,
Yeah.
right? Okay, good. I'm so glad you liked it too.
No,
It
I did.
just
But
I
I
lose
don't know that everybody would like it. Like my husband would hate it.
it's one of
It's
those
not
things.
it's slow and
It
it's,
is slow.
but it's so deep that if you're
Very.
going through deconstruction, highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
Highly,
Yeah.
highly recommend.
Yeah.
I loved it so much. I went back and my mom and I watched it together, and she did the same thing. We were just weeping together. Yeah,
Oh,
she's
wow.
also deconstructed a lot.
Oh, is
And
she?
so,
Mm.
I wanna hear a little bit, Leslie, though,
Mhm.
about your life and faith, um, oh my gosh, transitions like coach.
Yeah.
What is that exactly, being a coach to help somebody transition out of, like, faith or
Mm.
just like a change in life,
Yeah.
Real
It's
quickly,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to exit here because I have to do an interview for one of my
Okay.
stations.
Yeah,
So
You're
yeah.
fine.
I'll let you pick that up and
Okay.
thank you for being I have so much I want to talk about, and I've really been enjoying your episodes.
Yes.
So
Yeah, me
hopefully we
too.
can talk again.
Okay. Yeah, well, definitely.
Definitely.
That'd be fun.
All
I would
right,
love it.
bye guys.
Hi,
Bye, Cheryl.
Cheryl. Charity here. Just jumping in really quick to tell you about our amazing sponsor, Blue Ridge Hope. Whether you are facing depression, anxiety, maybe you're going through grief, just feeling alone, they would love for you to give them a call because they want to be there for you. They offer affordable mental health counseling, youth mentorships, and community programs that, this is the best part, are all regardless of whether you can pay or not. So if you would like to check them out, head over to blueridgehope.org, or you can call them 828 202 3075. Thank you again so much to Blue Ridge Hope. Now back to the show.
I love what I get to do. And I'm
Mhm.
doing it because the whole time I was going through the early days of deconstructing, I kept thinking, I just need somebody to talk to. I need somebody
Yes.
to help point me. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I felt like
Mm.
I was blind. Like
Yeah.
I trying to get through deconstruction by myself and trying to be quiet about it. I was a
Mhm.
public figure and
Yeah.
going through this, I wasn't ready. I didn't want to talk about it out loud until I knew where I stood. And
Exactly.
all of it was so confusing and so difficult. And if I just had somebody to help coach me through it, I think it would have been a little easier on my
Yep.
part.
Mhm.
So the whole time I'm going through it, I'm like,
Mm.
man, when I get on the other side of this,
Yes. I'm
I
gonna
am
help
going to
you.
help other people
Yeah.
because I call them, I have such compassion and such a heart for these people. I call them invisibles. And they're
Yes.
people who are on the internet who are looking for
Mhm.
somebody to help point them to answers that they
Yep.
know that they haven't found yet,
Yep.
that they're really desperately looking for. They're
Mm.
asking the tough questions and they're not really getting the right answers because people are afraid to give them answers that aren't packaged in
Exactly.
theology and,
Yep.
and dogma and
Yes.
indoctrination. And so, they don't want to even like posts because people will see they liked it. They
Yeah.
don't want to, comment on posts
Mhm.
because they know people will see they commented. So
Yeah.
they DM me.
Oh.
And they're really, really struggling. And
Yeah.
so I got certified as a life coach to help people through life transitions. And I did it. It's funny, you can do it like in a group or you
Yeah.
can do it one-on-one. I paid the extra to get
Yes.
certified with one-on-one
That's
because it was
good.
such
Yeah.
a specific thing. And
Mhm.
it's so unique. Like
It
there's not a lot of people that really
do
focus in
that.
on
Yeah.
faith transitions and
No,
deconstruction
that's very true.
and I don't give answers. I think part of the coaching is teaching people to be okay with not knowing,
Exactly.
teaching people to trust. What does faith look like, guys? It looks like not knowing but trusting. And believing in your heart, like knowing
Mhm.
that something is good and true. And I may not be able to tell you all the, check off all the
Yeah.
boxes of this is how it's going to look, but I can tell you knowing God.
Mhm.
So it's really just helping people um,
Mm.
find what feels right for them
Yeah.
and helping them walk through it. And I don't tell them what to do. This is the funny thing. I'm not a therapist,
Mm.
and therapists will give you like, here, do these things and, try this and blah, blah,
Exactly,
blah.
yeah.
For me, I believe we all have the answers inside. We just don't know how to get to them because
Mm.
we've been indoctrinated for so long. So it's about asking the right questions and then
Mhm.
just kind of sitting in those questions with
Yep.
people and helping them figure it out themselves. And I will tell you one of the biggest, most fulfilling things I get to see is when somebody's face just lights up and they're like, oh my gosh, I get it.
Yeah, I
I
get it.
understand. And
Makes sense.
I don't have to say anything. I just
Yeah,
have to sit there with it. Sometimes you
and
just need somebody to
listen.
sit with you
Yeah.
and really listen, like active
Mhm.
listening. And that was hard for me. I'll be honest. I was a speaker. I was
Well,
on
yeah.
radio. I was the one talking. I was, a mentor in Christian
Exactly.
spaces where I was telling everybody what to believe and how to believe it. And I felt very comfortable in that space. So let me just
Same.
tell you, going through this training was one of the most gut-wrenching, difficult things. It's like, shut up, Leslie. Shut up. Don't
Yeah,
say
really.
anything. Just listen. Just
Just
listen.
listen.
Instead of, and I think as a Christian, you're taught sometimes don't really listen
Mhm.
because you have all the answer. You know
Oh,
everything. They
yeah, I
don't really
already
know.
know what I'm gonna
I know
respond
what I'm going
to.
to say, and it's
Yeah.
going to be scriptural,
Mhm.
and they can't argue with it because it's
Exactly.
scriptural. And I'm not really listening to you because you're deceived and you don't know the truth.
Yep.
But I'm going to be here in your life. Aren't you just so lucky that
You're
God
so
brought
lucky.
me into your life?
Exactly.
Um, and I had to unlearn a lot of that
Mhm.
and start to listen to different perspectives. And
Yep.
it has broadened my perspective
Mhm.
to be able to listen to other people because our life experiences, man, they shape us. And
It
one thing you're
does.
taught in Christianity is that it's not about experience, it's about truth.
No. Exactly.
It's not
That
about
is.
emotions. Your emotions are liars and you can't
Yes.
listen to that. And your
Do
heart is
not follow your
deceitful.
heart.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
your
it's like
heart's deceitful.
unlearning this stuff.
Mhm.
It really takes a lot of time and having somebody, what I do is I just sit in that with people. I sit in that
Mhm.
hard place and it can be really heavy. Um,
Absolutely. Mhm.
but I
I
have not worked with anybody who stayed in that heaviness.
Oh,
Everybody can come through it.
you can. Yep,
In
you
different
can.
places. They end up in different places. Like
Yep.
some people end up atheist. Some
Yeah.
people end up, going back into evangelicalism and they're like, I'm determined to show people that that's not what that verse means.
Yes.
I don't know how they do it. Good for
I don't
you.
either, but they do sometimes.
But
Exactly.
it's not about me telling you where to go. It's
Yeah.
about me just being on the road trip with you as you
Yes.
travel through deconstruction. So
Going through that.
that's what I do. And
And I
it's great.
love it. I would have given anything
Yeah.
to have had that when I
Right.
went through mine because mine started in,
Mhm.
like, 2018, I think, and I it was like I had lost my identity, which I'm sure you
Mhm.
felt as well. That was what I
100%.
was known as. That's what I was.
Sure.
I
Yeah, it's
like
all of it.
all of it. Like I worked at Christian radio stations. I was in a Christian band at one point. I mean, all these things. And it's like, then once I deconstructed all that, and I'm just like, I have nothing.
Who
Like,
am
what
I?
am I? Yeah, who am
Yeah.
I? What do I even enjoy? What do I even like? It's crazy. Yeah. So what you're doing, I cannot even imagine how much
Yeah.
it's truly helping people.
Well, I hope it is. So
Mhm.
far it's been great feedback.
Yes.
It's hard though. I mean,
Mhm.
every time I hear from an invisible, I'm
Yes.
like, oh my goodness, my heart wants to explode for
Yeah,
them because I
exactly.
know how difficult it has to be so hard to even make that first connection,
It
which is
is.
why I offer a 30-minute free consultation
Oh, that's great.
where I just kind of talk to them and I'm like,
Yes.
listen, let's just see if there's a fit here. Let's make
Yeah.
sure that you know that coaching is not me
Mhm.
telling you, hey,
Do with
do one,
yeah.
two, three, four. I am not, an evangelical anymore.
Exactly. Yeah,
I'm not going to give you
same.
a list of things that all start with the letter P. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to actually just kind of sit in this with you
Yeah.
and try to get to the root of why you're struggling and where
And
you're
yes.
at and what are your fears? What are you so afraid
Mhm.
of? Why can't you talk about this with
Mhm.
anybody? Where do
Yeah.
you feel safe? Is there anybody that you feel safe with? There's so many questions.
Mhm.
But the answers are all inside of them, not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I totally agree. That was so beautiful.
Oh,
And,
thanks.
yeah, it's just so that's the whole point too of wanting to start a podcast like this.
Mhm.
I'd seen you start yours too, and I was just like, we've got to get a community of people here
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
can be for the invisibles. Like I
Yeah.
intentionally want to be that because I was one for so long myself.
So long. Yeah,
So
same.
long. And even as a teenager, when I was still so deep in it,
Mhm.
Christian rock is what kind of was like my go-to. That's
Mhm.
what, because it was at least Christian. My mom would allow me to listen to that. And so that was my outlet. And then coming back, it's funny because it's been, like I said, like queer music typically. Derek Webb and like Similar and Flamey Grant and
Mm.
all these Trey Pearson, all these incredible people. And it's just so funny. I never really expected to come back anyway. I kind of thought I was completely done for a while.
Same.
And
Yeah.
yeah, see, until I started to see there are so many people hurting
Mhm.
just like I was.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do whatever I could possibly do to try to
I
help.
bet this has been hard for you too. Like when you start getting vocal is when the,
It
what
is
do
a
you call it?
bit.
Crusaders come out.
Yeah, there's been a couple.
Yeah. And
My
it's
my ex
very, very difficult for them to see somebody um in at peace
yes,
with something that doesn't line up with where they find their peace.
absolutely.
And I
That is the
understand
truth.
that. Like
Yeah.
that's the weird thing about being in, like I feel like I can speak two languages.
Mhm.
Like I speak, I know what they're going to say before they say it. I
Christianese.
know. Oh,
That's what I call it.
Christianese. I am
Yeah.
fluent. I am
Me
fluent. As a matter
too.
of fact, she's still sitting right over here. I call
Right
her
here,
Sister
yeah.
Christian.
Yeah.
Sister Christian is right over here.
Sister
And she
Christian,
knows
that's right.
exactly what to
Yeah,
say to me.
that's
She's
right.
like, yeah, but this is blah,
But
blah,
this
blah,
is
blah,
what
blah.
you
And remember this scripture and blah, blah, blah,
mhm,
blah. And then there's, the new
mhm.
Leslie over here who's like, yeah, but does this promote love? Yeah, but
Yes,
does this feel right in you? Is this the
exactly.
right thing for you? And I
Mhm.
just remember being told like there's truth, there is no such thing as your truth. But
Yeah, I've been told that
please,
too.
please, this is such a deception
Mhm,
because there is a such thing as your truth.
mhm.
A lot of people believe a lot of different things
Yes.
and all over the world. And beliefs don't save you.
No.
I know it says in Romans, believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and thou shalt be saved.
Yeah.
But what does that word believe mean? You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like look at the original Greek. It's
Yes.
pisteo and it
Yep.
means firm conviction, full surrender, lifestyle reflective of that surrender. So that
Wow.
doesn't mean like like, I believe that Trump is the president, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe it because it's true.
Mhm. It's true,
He's our
exactly.
president,
Yeah,
whether we
yeah.
like it or not.
Yeah, I know,
Um,
unfortunately.
but I don't believe in him.
Exactly.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I know
That's the
exactly what
difference.
you mean.
And
Absolutely.
so I think what that verse is trying to say is when you believe in something, your lifestyle kind of shows that that's the way
Mhm.
you believe. So you're
Yep.
going to act like Jesus. So if
Yes,
you're
you
not
are.
acting like Jesus, something's wrong with your faith.
Exactly. And like we've talked about, before I deconstructed, now that I look back, I'm like, I I was kind of doing the opposite. I was living
Mhm.
the opposite of
Yeah,
Jesus, of how he
we
lived.
all were.
And yeah, yeah, we were. And so yeah, that you're exactly right. And
We were
that
one
is
dimensional. We were
so
trying to be
one-dimensional.
just like how they edited me on Survivor. I was Sister Christian, they called
Mhm.
me. That,
Exactly.
and they edited me only doing the things that lined up with that
Yes.
edit. And
Exactly.
and it's so funny to me that I realized when I was in Christianity, it was the same thing.
Yep.
I was Sister Christian, and anything that I would show in public would only be that. If I
Yeah.
had doubts, I kept them to myself. If I had
Me too.
questions, I had any
Me
kind
too.
of thought that didn't line up with what the people around me wanted me to believe
Yeah.
and think, I
You were not.
dismissed it. I
Absolutely.
wasn't going to even engage it because
Yes.
I didn't want to ruin the truth, quote unquote.
Mhm.
But once I studied, and I highly recommend, especially if you're just starting out with deconstruction, highly recommend looking into neuroplasticity and how
Ooh.
the brain is formed. Have you heard of
Okay.
this?
Yes,
Girl,
my friend is a therapist, and she's kind of gone over some of it with me,
oh,
but please
this
explain.
is good
Yes,
stuff.
tell me.
Like your brain is constantly rewiring itself.
Mhm,
So, and I think that it's very evident to me that when I came out here to Utah and got out
mhm.
away from the Bible Belt and the people
Yep.
that were telling me the same message over and over again, and just increasing the neural pathways for those messages, right?
Wow.
I come
Yes.
over here and I stop going to church and I stop being around the
Mhm.
people that were telling me these messages, and I start bringing new messages in. My brain rewired itself.
Yeah.
And I'm
Mhm.
like, are you telling me this is psychological? Wait a
What?
minute. And
I
when
know.
you realize this
Mhm.
is why we sing the same verses over and over again.
Yep.
This is why we hear the same messages over and over again.
Repetition.
The
Exactly.
repetition, the this is true, this is true. And if you
Exactly.
don't believe it, then this, and this is the message, and here's the fear. And
Mhm.
it's so easy to stay in that belief system when you are convinced that it's the truth. And
Yeah.
you can convince yourself that anything is true, guys.
Oh,
You can.
absolutely.
I'm sorry. I know you think that's impossible, but trust me, like if somebody kidnapped you tomorrow and put you
Yeah.
in a room and started giving you a whole different message, in 6 months, you would come out of there believing whatever they were telling you
Absolutely.
because that is how our brain
100%.
works.
It
So
is.
that's why the first thing they ask you, besides do you believe this or believe that,
Yes.
the first thing they say is, are you in fellowship with other believers? Are you in the word?
Yeah.
Because they want these same messages from the same people
That's
to
so
be repeated to
true.
you over and
Yep.
over and over again. And as long as that's happening, you're going to continue to believe it.
Well, of course you are. I mean,
I mean,
it
it's human nature 101.
exactly.
We can't
It
escape it.
really is. It is, and it's
So
brainwashing, and,
it
you
is,
know,
but
it's
that's like the not technical term. If you need something like softer than that,
yes, I
maybe you don't
understand.
want to believe it. It's called neuroplasticity, guys, and
There
look
you
it up.
go. That's
Trust
it.
me, it's
The
it's a
correct
it's a
word.
scientific thing,
Is that
and
neuroscience?
I am living proof that
Mhm.
it's true.
Me yes. Well, see, I really kind of am too, even though I haven't moved completely out of the Bible Belt. I ended up marrying somebody that was not that always struggled with
Mhm.
belief, and he is more
Yeah.
agnostic, and
Right.
so it's so funny when I tell people like, "Well, yeah, it was my husband that turned me like, feminist. Yeah, it was my husband that, like, encouraged me when we went to the pride parade, and he's got the gay best friends," and it's like all these things, and I love it so much because it's just not the norm. That's not typically how it happens. You do usually have to
It
move,
should be, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it really should
I
be.
know
It
what you
really
mean
should
though.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels weird though. You feel almost like naughty.
Oh,
This is
yes.
the first year that I went to a pride celebration. I went to
I
the
saw that you
No Kings. I
did.
got in a lot of trouble from
I
my
saw that.
conservative friends. I'm like, guys, I've been talking about
Oh,
this for years.
what
How are
you
you just
said was
now realizing?
perfect, though.
Was it?
Everything
Okay,
you
good.
said in that post was
Whew.
beautiful, and I thought it was so grace-filled for
Oh, good.
probably the messages you were probably receiving.
Yeah.
And fun fact, I actually also went to the No Kings protest
Mhm.
here in town, and I live in a very small town in North
Yeah.
Carolina, and it was a good turnout. I was shocked kind of at the turnout, but
Yeah.
even I literally I was very close to the road, kind of standing on the sidewalk, and the stoplight, it was a red stoplight. And a guy in this big truck, I'm holding my sign, and we're all just like, yeah, and saying our stuff. And he just starts like flipping me off,
Aw.
something like, well, just
Christian love.
I know, right?
Sorry.
Isn't that like, it's so accurate.
Aw,
But
that's so
then here,
precious.
listen to what I did because it's not even better. Because I was like, I don't know what overtook me, but I was just
Yeah.
like, I can do it too. And I was like
Yeah.
throwing it back at him. But then he literally got a gun out of his glove compartment.
You're
Yeah,
joking.
I am not. And was like, me and my husband saw it too. And then yet again, something else overtook me. And I just didn't care. And I gave him like two. I was flipping him off with both. And Cameron's just like, Charity, that was probably not the smartest idea. And I was like, yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm learning my lesson. I'm trying to
Wow.
learn
Well, and
because
it's
people are crazy.
hard. Well, and I also how far are you into your deconstruction?
Oh, very. Probably 8 years, I would
Okay.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. It's, initially, I think I went through the anger phase. It was uncharacteristic. I had a lot of road
Yes.
rage. I was flipping
Yes.
people off. I was like angry all the time. And I was
Yeah.
like, what in the actual F is happening to
What am
me?
I
Like, what
doing?
is happening?
Exactly.
This is not who I am. And
Uh-uh.
then I was like, now I really think I have a demon. You know what I mean?
Yes,
But
it's in there.
But as I've done more research and as
Mm.
I got my certification in helping people through this, I realized this is all part of the grief process.
It is.
We are saying goodbye to something. This is like a
Yeah,
death,
it
the
is a
death
death.
of an
Exactly.
identity, of a
Yep.
community,
Mhm.
and you will experience an anger phase.
1000%. And
And sometimes it will
it
pop
shifts
up like it
sometimes,
did
yeah,
for
because
you.
I
Mhm.
feel like typically I am such an empath, and I am
Yeah.
so like, I'm just such a pacifist. Like, I do
Right.
not like any kind of violence at all.
Right. Same.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's probably what, like, why I
Like a
felt the
righteous
angry.
anger. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like righteous anger. Yeah, because
Yeah.
typically I'm just like whatever now. I've kind of just like,
Well, and
I don't care.
it's tough because when people come at you and they're
Mhm.
angry and they're ugly about it, my first instinct, is to throw that back at them.
Yes.
But like here's what I keep trying to tell myself, okay? And then this is so hard. Oh God, this is so hard.
I know.
What I tell myself is that, these people, I mean, I left religion, I left evangelicalism to pursue love.
Mm. That's literally me too. Yeah.
So I need to pursue love in my response.
Yeah.
And I need to
Oh,
be
you're right.
gracious. And if
Yep.
I can't say anything gracious yet, I need to sit on it
That's
until I
right.
can.
Mhm.
And if my message is, hey guys, live like Jesus, I better live like Jesus.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
And so that's kind of what I tell myself. But man, I'm not kidding. Sometimes, whew,
It just
the anger,
hard, but yeah.
it's like it's like you've just had enough.
Yeah.
Like we are experiencing in this country. I don't know if you're fully aware of this,
Oh,
but
yes. I
it's
keep
like
up with
a
most.
collective, just deep exhaustion. We're
Oh, it
exhausted.
so is.
We
Yes,
are
Lord.
overstimulated. We're being exposed to more than
Mhm.
we've ever been exposed to politically,
Yep.
spiritually, emotionally, relationship, community, all of
Everything.
it. Everything is so intense right now. And meanwhile, we're still trying to pay our bills and do our job and
Oh
raise
my
our kids and
I
keep our house
know.
clean and feed our dogs on time. There's
Yep.
like so much and we are so tired.
Mhm.
And I think we have got to figure out how to reground ourselves. Do you
Yes,
know
we
what I
do.
mean?
That's what I've
We've
been
got to
thinking
step
too.
away from the
Yes.
media, step
From just a
away
bit.
from being online.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you start to feel that anger boiling up, that is your
Mhm.
body saying your nervous system
Mhm.
is in fight or flight right now.
And it was,
Yeah,
exactly. You're
of course
right.
it
And
was.
it was like after that happened, it did kind of click. And I was talking to my husband and I was like, that was such a bad response to that
Yeah, but you
situation.
knew that. You
And I
knew that.
did know that. And
Yeah.
then from then on,
But it felt really good,
anytime
didn't it?
it did feel really good. I'm not gonna lie, it did feel really, really good because he did it. He only was looking at me. He thought he could
I know.
intimidate a woman,
Right, of
that kind of
course.
thing.
Yeah.
But, from then on, anytime anyone else did it, or it was like guys coming by with their Trump trucks, and stuff,
Yeah.
I would hold my sign and they would be looking at us and like flipping us off. And I was just like, I love you, and I'm like,
Oh, there
this
you
is
go.
great.
Ooh,
And
they
but
hate that.
it's great because they
Yeah.
hate that even more.
Mhm.
So I'm like, well,
Mhm.
this is
It's like a
good.
mirror that you hold up. It's like, this is how you respond to
This
this.
is it.
This is why
And
we're
nothing will
here
change. Yep. Unless
until we start to
yep,
love.
exactly.
Yeah, it's
Leslie,
amazing.
thank you. I don't want to keep you any longer. I know I have to
No, this was so much fun.
you're so
I've loved it.
amazing. I love it.
Oh, thank
And we
you.
will definitely have you back on if you'll come on. I would
Yeah, of course, girl.
love it.
Anytime.
Tell
Any
people where
topic,
they can
anytime.
find you. Oh, goody. I like to hear that.
Yeah,
But tell
yeah.
people all about your stuff, where they can find you.
Okay. I do have a TikTok where I get a little controversial sometimes, and it's Honoring the Journey is what it's
Okay.
called. And then Leslie Nease. And then
Mhm.
I have a website if you want to sign up for a 30-minute free consultation and just see if coaching is for you. Maybe you're an invisible. You will stay that way,
Yeah.
except for me. Like I'll know who you are, but that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've even done free consults with people where they didn't even want me to see them. They just wanted to talk, and I don't even know if they gave me the correct their true name.
They're
I
hard. Yeah.
understand. It's
I
hard.
get
I
it
mean, it's
too. It is.
so don't let that hold you back. Like
Mhm.
their healing can happen even if you're not ready to be seen
Exactly.
yet.
Yes.
So don't let that stop
True.
you. It's leslieneasecoaching.com.
Perfect.
And also Honoring the Journey is my podcast. And I share stories of people just like all of us who are going
Yeah.
through this exact same thing.
Exactly.
And really amazing people. I still can't, I just want to pinch myself. I can't believe I get to share
Right.
these stories. And then coming up in August, I'm not sure when this is airing, but in August, you'll hear from me with my friend Todd from Survivor China
I'm
on
so
Beyond the
ex
Torch. And we've got some pretty amazing guests. We've already signed up.
Yeah,
The
if you wanna
Queen, Sandra,
list
is going to be
them.
on.
Oh,
I know. I love Sandra.
the
She's
evil
amazing.
villain. I
And
know.
PG, she was on our season. So we've got some
Yeah.
really great people
Oh,
already lined
this
up
is gonna be
to
great.
interview.
Oh,
So
I
yeah,
cannot wait. And that's gonna start in August?
it starts in August. We're
Okay.
starting to record tomorrow. Oof, can't
I'm
believe it.
so
I
excited
know.
for
This
you
is
guys.
one of the, I needed some levity in my
Mhm.
life.
Well, see, I do
Pretty
too.
heavy.
I
Yeah.
can at least just listen to your podcast
Yeah,
on this.
yeah.
That's
You
gonna
can
help
listen to it.
me.
It'll
I
be
need
fun.
something on it. Well, thank you, Leslie, and we
You're
will
so
definitely have
welcome.
you back on here soon,
Okay. That would
and
be
I
fun.
just really appreciate it. I had a great time.
It was
We
really great to meet you,
It
Terry.
was so wonderful to meet you too, and I hope that we stay connected and we keep finding more of these invisibles and just keep collecting them and bringing them along.
Just
That's what
love
I
on them.
want.
Yep.
Yes. Mm. Well, you have a wonderful day.
Thank you,
Thank
dear.
you.
It was fun to talk
Bye.
to you.
Good to talk
Bye.
to you too. Bye.
Don't run.